Thanks, Jim. The idea of the session tonight is fresh thinking, new possibilities, time for some behaviour change. It is interesting that we've timed this to coincide with a football match. I actually stood on exactly this platform 10 years ago, almost to the day. So it may say something about sustainability that I'm still here, but it was just before the teams went off to Korea and Japan for the World Cup. And I know the feeling about whether or not you get selected for the travelling party, because the reason I stood up here was 12 hours before I stood up, my boss lost his voice, and the then ludicrously named MMO2, which was our predecessor listed company, was making its inaugural results announcements. And so I got 12 hours notice to say, would you like to come and present? So this should be a piece of cake. So what I want to try and cover is, look, I'm no environmentalist, I'm just a pragmatic businessman, and actually an optimist, which I know for a businessman these days is probably slightly unusual. So I'm not going to teach you anything that you didn't already know about the environment and the sustainability agenda. All I simply do is share a little bit about who we are and how we think about this particular agenda, and why maybe some of the things that we've been doing have either been a little bit different or a little bit more effective, and maybe some people will get some insight. So a little bit about the challenge that we all face, a little bit about our journey to being a more sustainable business and supporting a more sustainable society, the role that ICT and the ICT sector maybe can play in that, and a little bit about what we're doing as O2 and through Think Big. So firstly, let me thank Jim and Green Monday for the opportunity. You know, it is really important in this sort of economic environment that organizations like Green Monday are out there focusing on being part of the solution and making sure that businesses keep engaged on this really critical topic at a very difficult time. What I'd like us to look a little bit and try and explore, both in the conversation now and in the Q&A and then in the panel stuff later around your tables, is look at the power of digital innovation and coupled with effective behavior change to see how we can engineer, you know, a shift in consumption and behavior that will actually help to deliver a more sustainable environment, particularly looking at emerging trends like online collaborative cultures powered by social networking, and that way maybe help to tackle some of the endemic and systemic challenges we face, you know, the social, the economic and the environmental. In some respects, I kind of have maybe a contrarian view in that I think social, economic and environmental challenge is essentially in Europe all part of the same issue. And for me, they have potentially the same solution at their core. And that, for me, is the missing ingredient is behavior change. You know, it's interesting. I think that the technological change agenda has fast outpaced the behavioral change agenda. Just a couple of stats. On the NASDAQ, there are 400 US listed technology companies, but there's only 11 European listed technology companies on the NASDAQ. You know, Europe suffering from social unrest and youth unemployment higher than 20%. Yet at the same time, we have 5 million unemployed people who are actually not actively engaged in anything in European society, except that those are 5 million digital natives who are an essential ingredient of converting our economies and our societies into a much more sustainable one. So we aren't effectively husbanding one of our critical natural resources and one of our critical scarce resources, which is youth. And it's why within our organization we couple people and planet together under our Think Big umbrella, and why it's such an important factor for us. The truth is the window of opportunity won't stay open forever. We do need to better harness what we have in the way of technological lead. You know, we need to make sure that the ICT sector not just talks a good game, but actually delivers comprehensively on the promise of the technology and innovation. And undoubtedly, we need to innovate faster than we're doing today. But I do fear some people are waiting for a technological solution that somehow or another is going to come in at the last minute and save the day. Ultimately, in my view, it's behavior that will be the determinant of our success. So instead of a lost European generation, let's ensure that we harness that generation to drive future innovation and drive systemic change. So let me take back from that and talk a little bit about us and the journey that we've been on. So in our view, and in my view, this is not philanthropy. It's very simple. For us to have a sustainable business model, it's key for us to be part of a sustainable society and ensure that we engage young people in a way that they become a contributor to value and wealth creation in society. My sort of moment of truth was 2008. Xerox Corporation was running a session back in Ireland for all of its European customers, just talking about thought leadership on the sustainability agenda. And they had the chief operating officer from P&G there. And he talked very simply in businessman terms, not in scientist terms, not in technology terms. Very simple. He told the story of Aerial 30, which many of you may be familiar with. But essentially what he said was, I did the right thing. I produced a product that customers were willing to pay for. I didn't expect them to pay more for it. And I made a significant contribution through the revenues coming from that product to providing clean water all across Africa, as well as letting everybody feel good about the fact that they were washing their clothes at a lower temperature, thereby saving themselves money and feeling good about saving the planet. He picked up 17 points of market share in the category he was selling into. So it depends on which part of the story you remember. All of them are very important, but I remembered he picked up 17 points of share by doing the right thing. So to be really clear, what drives us is we want to do the right thing because it's the right thing for our business to do it. At about that same time, I made two smart moves. The first one was that I recruited Bill Ayres here, who's my head of sustainability and who previously worked at the Body Shop and at the Co-op. And we teamed up with Forum for the Future and Jonathan Porritt and the team. And essentially, our hypothesis was we wanted to engage our people and our customers. At the time, we were talking about our brand as connecting us, connecting our people to the people and things that mattered to them. And that's what we wanted to do with the sustainability agenda. We wanted to bring it into the DNA of the business. We wanted to embed sustainability in who we were as a brand and who we are as a business. And actually, I put them in that order quite intentionally because we see ourselves as a brand who runs a business, not a business that owns a brand. And I think in some respects, in the approach that we take to this and other issues, there's something in that. It's part of the brand DNA of who we are and what we represent. With Forum, what we did was we analysed where we were, and then we went out to our customers and employees, and they told us what they expected of us, where they expected us to be. And two very clear messages came out. They expected us to focus on young people, and they also expected us to transform our business into a sustainability innovator. From that was born Think Big for People and Planet, along with our goal to become a sustainable leader. So a little bit of what we've done. Well, the first thing we did, engaging our people, we recruited Think Big thinkers across the business to make sure that actually right across the organization at grassroots in every one of our call centers, as many of our retail stores as possible, as well as our office sites, that there were people who were actively engaged in the agenda. So it wasn't a top-down agenda. It was about engaging people right across the business, and so we were top-down and bottom-up at the same time. We also started to put our house in order. We got accredited to the Carbon Trust, the first network to do it, adopting smart metering across our estate. A business like ours, over 90% of our carbon footprint is down to the network we run and the power. We as a company use about 1,000th of all of the electricity in the UK. So we have a challenge in the business in itself. But we started and we made a significant reduction in our power consumption by just doing things smarter. We also, more recently, when we designed our new headquarters in Slough campus, we managed to reduce the carbon footprint of our head office by 52% by thinking about how we were building and the behaviours that we were going to adopt inside the building. And I'll talk a little bit more about work practices later. The third thing we did, we started to innovate in our products and services. So we actually went, and for the first time, we actually put an eco rating on handsets. So actually gave people information at the point of purchase that they never had before. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's the biggest of its scheme of its kind. It's a first, and at the moment the ITU, which is the International Telecommunications Union, and the GSMA, which is our trade body, are both looking at how they can adopt that or work with us in order to adopt what would be effectively an industry standard. We introduced the concept of the universal charger. For those of you who have no interest in the sustainability agenda, you will be interested in getting at least one drawer in your house back, which has been owned by dead pieces of equipment for the last 10 years. Well, with a universal charger, we did two things. We said, wouldn't it be good if all phones used the same connection? And the second thing is, wouldn't it be good if, when you put your phone on charge overnight, that actually as soon as the battery was charged, the charger switched off? How many of you, when you pick up the phone in the morning, it's hot? That's only because it's dissipating the spare energy that once the battery's been filled. So we went out and we said, let's get a charger that's actually energy efficient, and let's start to talk to people about, wouldn't it be nice if we just use one connection? But in the interim, gave people multiple connections, so they only ever needed one charger. We introduced the concept of O2 recycle, and recycling itself, not entirely new, but within our industry, recycling was not necessarily an activity that had been considered truly end-to-end from a sustainability point of view. So we worked very closely to get to develop relationships and supply chain relationships that allowed us to become now the third or fourth biggest recycler in the UK, and responsible end-to-end for what happens in both first life, second life, and on for the devices that we use. And in between, by the way, we've given customers back £25 million, as well as funding a portion of our sustainability agenda. So a good example of doing the right thing can be also good for business. Our customers quite like it when we give them back £25 million. And the fourth leg of what we were doing was we launched our social programme. It's a £5 million annual programme. Our programme is with UK Youth and the National Youth Agency, and that's our Think Big for young people. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I introduce Chris. So just briefly, the role of Forum. Well, I think it's really important on a journey like this, particularly for a business like ours, which recognised that we were, sustainability virgins. We had the ambition to do something, but we actually had no idea where to start. So you recruit in, you get somebody like Bill. At the interview, I said, Bill, if this goes really, really well, you'll be out of a job, because this is not something that should be done as a corporate head office activity. It should be something that lives and breathes inside the business. So in 3 years' time, when somebody asks you about sustainability, they'll just scratch their heads and say, that's just how we do things around here. So we started with that as our ambition, and we worked with Forum, and they help us to keep us honest, and they act as a thought leader. And the great thing about leadership, I heard Terry Leahy say this certainly in a session that I had with him in 2002, but I'm sure he said it many times, is leadership is ultimately about leading people to a place they wouldn't otherwise have gone. And I think Forum help us to go a little further and stretch both our ambition and our delivery beyond where it might otherwise have been. They also have brought accountability and transparency to what we're doing. But the interesting thing is, we're doing all this stuff. Our employees love it, our customers love it. Forum said, well done. But we then said, well, let's just check in with people and just make sure that we're doing the right stuff. And actually the feedback was, you're not being remotely bold enough. As a brand that serves more customers in the UK on a daily basis than any other brand, that's more than 22 million people that are served every single day by the O2 brand. There is not another brand out there that serves as many people on a daily basis. Essentially, we were being unambitious. We thought we were doing okay, but that was the feedback we got. So we took that on board. So we committed then to go a bit faster, using digital communications in our core products and services much more effectively to try and effect a more fundamental change. Out of that was born our Think Big blueprint, which, if you haven't already, please do take a copy and have a look. And I won't spend a lot of time on it because you all have the opportunity there, but it does have some big, hairy, audacious goals in it, and ones that we're going to bloody well deliver. One is that we're going to help 1 million people And how are we going to do that? Essentially through our Think Big program, through O2 Learn, through our apprenticeship schemes, our internship schemes, and more recently we've announced and launched in the UK and across Europe an incubator and startup to support innovation in ICT. We're going to have 10 million customers whose lives are impacted so that they will actually be able to live more sustainable lives by using our products and services. And we're also going to address the fact that we're a big user of energy by making sure that our impact is 10 times greater than the actual carbon footprint we deliver. Very briefly, what we said was, well, if we aren't doing enough, we have to do more. So flexible working. We actually closed our head office one day and demonstrated the fact that with the smart use of communications technology, you could be more efficient, not less, without anybody having come to the office. And the opportunity of the Olympics is a great one for people to test how they work on a daily basis. Things like O2 Wallet and Priority are not just helping to give customers great new opportunities in mobile commerce, but actually Priority, which is an advertising medium, actually allows small businesses to compete with big businesses in their local markets and effectively yield manage in the way normally only big companies can do. So again, good for sustainability. We've moved from just having a smart charger to our ambition to have no chargers. And most recently, in the last day or two, you may have seen us announce the fact that we're going to crash our network together with Vodafone's, and by doing that, actually reduce the absolute carbon footprint of the UK sector for the two companies. Before I introduce Chris, just let me say two things about the whole youth agenda. I think it's critically important that we engage young people who are ultimately the digital natives and provide them with the skills and the sustainable, tangible skills that will actually mean that they can take this agenda on and deliver ultimately on it. To do that, I think we need to invest more as businesses and commit to work with the third sector and with government. And rather than me say any more about it, let me introduce Chris Critchlow, who's been involved directly in our Think Big program. Chris.